Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to the podcast. Today, here I have back with me Claire Chancellor. Hello, Claire. How are you?
Hi, Jess. Thank you for having me. Hi, everybody.
It's nice to have you back. I've had some amazing feedback from our episodes that we've put out so far, about tarot, past life regression, about manifesting. I've had some really, really good feedback, and it gets me so excited. These conversations, not only do we love having them, but everyone apparently loves to hear them. So it's so good to have you back for another one.
Oh, thank you. And then we've got another fun conversation today.
Yes, another fun one. Today we're talking all about empaths. So it's going to be a very interesting episode because I feel like I've known more about past life regression and manifesting and tarot than I do about empaths. So I feel like I'm going to learn a lot here, and I do have some really, really good questions here. So it's going to be such a great conversation to have today.
It's interesting, isn't it? We're talking about empaths and knowing, it may come down to semantics, but knowing that you, Jess, are an empath, I think you're going to learn a lot more about yourself.
Okay, bring it on. I
This is all about you, right? No.
this podcast is all about me. No, I actually did almost feel like that in the last podcast because I felt like with the manifesting, I was just learning so much. And I'm like, is everyone getting this as much as I'm getting this right now?
Yeah, I'm just following the energy when it comes to like the spirit guides and the universe at the moment, like what needs to be said. So the synchronicities to make these happen, these conversations need to be out there, and whether it's with me or your sister or your friends, like people need to know how magnificent they are and the energy that's available to them. So yeah, this is a real blessing for everybody to be able to listen in on these types of conversations. So we're so lucky to have you, Jess.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I know a little bit about empaths. Like, I feel like I have a definition that I know what it is, which has given me a little bit of an understanding. And then one day I asked you, because I asked you if I was an empath, because I thought I was, and you're like, yes. And I'm like, I thought so. And then I asked your definition, and I'm like, whoa, yes, this is so cool. We definitely need to have a conversation on this. This is more than I ever thought. This is going to be amazing. So, yeah, we could start with the question there. What is an empath?
Yeah, what is an empath? It's funny that you asked that, and it's not that my mind's gone blank, but I can feel my energy go, gosh, where do I start? Because there's so many different components to being an empath. But simply put, an empath is a person who is walking this world, feeling everybody else's emotions. They tend to put themselves second because they are such phenomenal healers and they just want to give. And the empath there has come in with a soul contract about bringing compassion, love, and kindness to this world. But of course, in the abrupt world that we live in, it can be quite a challenge for an empath to exist here in this world. So, yeah, basically put, an empath is very highly skilled in their psychic intuitive abilities, and yet they feel things so deeply. Can you relate to that, Jess?
Yes, I can. It's so interesting because when I first started learning about like what definition I thought what an empath was, I was like, this is me. I feel things so deeply. I feel like I take on other people's energy so often and so deeply. And it actually affects me in a negative way because I didn't know how to let go of that. I didn't know how to set boundaries, and I didn't know how to use that as a power, rather. Um, so I think it's only as I was sort of learning about boundaries and maybe how to sort of navigate my way through other people's energy and like reading them. That's when I started trying to figure out the best ways to move forward so that it doesn't feel like it's like more of a burden on me, or just like something that I don't want to be or have. Because
Yeah.
now that I know a little bit more, I'm like, I'm an empath, and it is amazing. Like it is a superpower. And
Yeah.
I think we're going to learn more in this episode exactly why I think that, and I'm probably going to learn more why I think that, and we're really going to get down to the deeper nitty gritty of what an empath is.
Yeah, bring
So
it on.
yeah, yeah. So, well, first of all, I'm guessing I would love to know you're an empath, of course, right?
Yeah, and I've done the journey of being a wounded empath and then learnt the tools, went through the spiritual development to better understand how being an empath is that superpower and to have those inspirational conversations so that the world isn't so heavy. It's sort of changing a different perspective to be able to like work out what am I supposed to do with these empath gifts. So,
Mm,
yes, 100% I would say I'm an empath.
mm. Okay, so moving forward with that, then, how do we know or how do we become an empath?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite questions. Now, I haven't said it's one of my favorite topics like I did with all of the other three, but that's when I got this piece of information, this was the light bulb moment that just went whoa, and I could then take the power within myself to make the changes. Without this piece of information, I was like, so what? I'm an empath. So what about my boundaries? So what? Like, what? How do you navigate this? So again, once I discovered how I became an empath, that's when I could really make the big shifts. So typically, an empath, the soul of an empath, will put their hand up and come to this world into a bit of a chaotic family. They're here to learn about the chaos and the heaviness so that they know how important it is to bring that compassion and light. But as a teeny tiny little one, we come into these families that tend to be a bit chaotic, dramatic, challenging, stressful, all of that yucky bundle. And what we do as a little one is we learn to energetically and psychically scan the room to know how mum is, to know how dad is, and then we energetically adjust ourselves to keep the peace. We so much crave that peace and that harmony that we will literally change who we are to keep the peace. And now, while that may work really well when you're little, it's a fabulous survival mechanism. What it doesn't work so well in adulthood is this whole piece about being trained to put yourself second. How are you? So then I'll change me. How are you? So I'll change me. Like that whole training means that as an adult, we tend to attract in people who make it really difficult for us to be seen, heard, valued, because they're happy to continue to make it all about them. And
Mm,
so 9 times out of 10, which is a whole nother conversation here, but 9 times out of the 10, the empaths will attract in the narcissist or have a chapter of attracting in narcissists because the narcissist is so unhealthy in the way that they want to make it about them, and the empath has been trained to make themselves second. So it's a really two ends of the spectrum that is so toxic. But
mm.
yeah, coming back to you, Jess, did I answer that question? How did I become an empath?
Yeah, yeah, of course. And I think also, like, I had another question on, like, how do I know if I'm an empath? But then I guess it could be a similar thing. Like, you sort of you when you read the room or you're taking on other people's energy, that's sort of like, okay, actually, there might be some sort of part of me that I'm an empath here. Is that correct?
I think that I do believe that there'd be a level of the spectrum where, people can take on other people's energy if need be. Like if you think about a heavy hitting scenario, the grief of somebody dying, like everybody will feel that energy. But what an empath tends to do is they take on the energy to help the other person.
Mm,
And then so if they're in crowded situations, they tend to be completely overloaded with everybody's energy all at once, and it's like their back energy centers, some people call it chakras, but their back energy centers just get completely blocked with like an air conditioner filter so that the energy doesn't move through them. It just stays with them. And then at the end of the day, the empaths tend to be like, I've got all of these feelings and I don't know what to do with them. And the simple truth is, they're not yours. But I've
Mm,
gone down a different path again, Jess. Bringing back that question, how do I know if I'm an empath? There tends to be about five, six different signs here of feeling overwhelmed by crowds, um, craving to be in amongst nature or with animals where there's that solitude, where there's that loyalty, because that dense city energy is just too overwhelming. You know that you take on board other people's energy, because at the end of the day, like, you don't know what to do with it. An empath will be very highly intuitive. The gift with being an empath is people can't lie to an empath because they can feel it and they know, like, no, no, that's not congruent. So an empath tends to be really intuitive. Um, there's a natural healing gift, a generous heart, a wanting to heal. And then the other thing is, noticing that when you're like at the supermarket or anywhere really, you tend to attract in people that want to tell you their broken stories. They want to, they feel this magnetic pull, and it's because the empath is radiating that healing energy and that compassion.
mm.
And then the last one there is an empath really does have trouble with their boundaries and speaking up and putting themselves first. So I'm not sure how many points I just covered there, but yeah, there's definitely a few indicators there, to let you know if you're an empath.
Wow. Wow.
Sorry, I flooded you with information.
No, this is amazing. This is amazing. This is what this is for. I'm just trying to not to bring this back about me, but
No, bring it
I'm
back to
just
you.
trying to think about this. And I feel like every single one of those points was just like tick, tick, tick on my radar. Like that definitely. Okay, so the with an empath, the the definition that I'm super like I've known about the most or I'm more aware of is that you tend to take on other people's energies a lot. And I got that when it sort of like stays inside you. That was, yeah, that made it more real for me because I'm like, yeah, it is harder to like sort of let go. It's like everything's blocked, but you can't like let it process through you rather, or just move through you rather than it stays inside you. But then you were speaking about like the nature, you just like crave nature and crave grounding and all of that. And then and especially I think it was the last point that you bring up about how people just sort of you're like a magnet to people that want to share their stories with you and sort of like in the way of like because you can help them and they feel like you have the right advice or you have the right things to say. And I just feel like that one especially has been me all my life and I don't know why and or didn't know why and especially recently. And I thought it was just because, you know, I'm like becoming a coach or I am a coach and people are coming to me for advice. And I was like, wow, I'm like, this is kind of really aligned for me because I kind of like people want my help. I kind of want to help them. Well, I definitely want to help them. So, but I didn't realize there was this part involved of me being an empath.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because the coaches, healers, they tend to be really phenomenal. Or I was going to say empaths tend to be really phenomenal coaches, healers, because they've walked that dark path and they also know how to bring in more of that light. Like they've done both sides. And so if you're seeing a coach like Jess or you're seeking out a healer, you you're in the presence of somebody who really walks their walk, talks their talk, whatever the saying is. Yeah, there's just this natural purpose to want to bring light and healing to people. So yeah, we see it in you, Jess.
Mm. Oh my gosh. Okay, now there's two questions that's coming to mind straight away. And I think I'm going to go with um, there's one question that I do want to ask you because I heard you mention it a little bit, and there is some talk around Instagram about empaths and narcissists. So it'll be
Mm,
cool to like really go deeper with that dynamic. Like, what's up there?
100%. Yeah. Can I be cheeky and ask him what was the other question?
Well, the other question was I heard you talk about wounding the wounded empath, and I would
Oh
really love to
yeah.
dive into that as well.
Yeah, let's start there because it will lead into the narcissist side of things.
Okay. Hmm.
So if we think about being here in this 3D reality, being here on Earth, Earth is a beautiful, beautiful school, and we hear so many people talk about that and the polarity here, the time, things are here in this world that we simply don't have in other worlds and we don't have in the spirit world. So as this growing, evolving soul, like somebody who their soul just craves to ascend and raise their frequency and expand, we look towards Earth as like, wow, I get to experience the polarity and the heaviness and the fear and like, oh, give me all that juicy, yummy stuff. And so we put our hand up to come to Earth to experience all of that heaviness. And when we're in the spirit world and we're between lives and we're looking at the things that we want to achieve and we've got access to our Akashic records and our guides there like, yeah, bring on the toxic relationships, bring on the divorce, bring like, yes, I can do this, I can see my way through this. And then what happens is they go, great, and they write up that contract and then they push you through this veil of amnesia. And then you're like, there's some swear words there, right? Like, far out, where are my tools, what am I doing?
Ah.
And so when we come to this world where there is, it's by design that we're here to have our buttons pushed a little bit like a remote control. People will push our buttons to be able to learn how to really work through the boundaries, the people pleasing, to better understand how they can be up on stage as a metaphor to share that light, to let people know about self-empowerment, the energy, the spiritual awakening. So it is by design that we do go through those wounds. Again, like what I was expressing earlier, is a healer has to have walked and worked through the darkness to be able to lead and help others through it. They have the tools, they have the know-how, and that's where they've walked that journey of being that wounded empath, so to speak, to know what works, to know more about themselves, so that they can get to the stage where you are, Jess, and letting people know you don't have to live in that lower frequency anymore.
Mm,
So does that make sense when I'm talking about soul contracts and coming to Earth? Does that all make sense?
yeah, it does. And I'm also wondering if is every does every empath go through that wounded phase first to become empowered empath or enlightened empath?
That's a really good question because it's not necessarily in this one lifetime. So in the last lifetime that you've done in a past life, you could have done all of your wounding and then very quickly worked through that, by the age of getting to primary school. It's like, no, actually, I've got this. But in your energy field and in your cellular memory, your soul on some level will know about what it's like to be wounded. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. Because my next question after that was what happens if in this lifetime we only go through the wounded empath phase and we don't actually come out of it? So, yeah.
Yeah, and we do a very quick life review and we come back.
Yeah.
And that's where I think everybody would agree that it feels like time is speeding up. It feels like the energy is so much more intense than it has ever been. And there is this real calling for people like you and I to be out there to let people know that they're not stuck in the matrix, that they can raise their frequency, which simply means like when people talk about frequency, it's what you frequently see, it's what you frequently tell yourself. So if you're stuck in these limiting beliefs, the woundedness, the victimness, all of the I'm not enoughness, the more that you're holding on to that, the more that you're holding on to the wounding. And the question is like, what's the benefit of holding on to that? How is it serving you? And if it's not serving you, then it's time to do that healing work, to be that empowered empath and to come out the other end. So yeah, you got me talking again, Jess. I'm not taking a breath or letting you.
Keep talking. I love it. The listeners love it. We want you to keep talking. This is so interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. I'm learning lots here, and it's just so interesting. So,
Mm.
for an empath, do they have any special talents or gifts compared to someone who is a non-empath?
Their intuition, 100%
Yeah.
their intuition is going to be tuned in, tapped in, turned on because they've been energetically scanning the room since they were teeny tiny. I think you could relate, Jess, when you sort of unknowingly energetically scan the room and then adjust yourself to keep the peace. Like it becomes entrained, it becomes entrained in us. And it's not that the world isn't safe, but we do continue to project out like a pulse, a little bit like being on a submarine, that pulse of energy going out. Like, are we going to hit any blocks? What do we need to know that's in front of us? And so that's where the empath, uh, yeah, tends to have a much finer knowledge on how to use their intuition. The interesting thing was when I when I dived right into spiritual development, I used to sit in on Circle, which was a beautiful group of mediums coming together, practicing their mediumship. And I sat in those circles like 5 hours on a Friday and 3 or 4 hours on a Wednesday night for like years. And the interesting thing was every single medium in that room had a chaotic childhood. They all had a victimy kind of story, a toxic relationship. They all had that. And because I'd been immersed in it for so long, I just assumed everybody does that. And
Mm,
coming out of it, realizing like, no, that tends to be the gifts of an empath is their spirituality, their spiritual development. They're tuned into the spirit world in a way that the average person who can just walk this world and not be affected by energy, um, yeah, that's where their gifts are.
mm. Cool. This is so good. And I'm wondering now, like, I don't know if there's even a statistic around there, but like, what percentage of this, the earth at the moment would be empaths? Because I imagine for the non-empaths, their sole contract would have been to come and explore something different, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah. And I can see that in my family that my brother is definitely spiritually asleep. And while he does have a level of intuition because he's been hanging out with his sister long enough, but
mm,
give him the corporate world, give him numbers and finance and all of that stuff that is part of one side of his brain where he's just tuned into. I'm tuned into the other part of the brain. The interesting thing that you talk about there, Jess, is like the percentage. It's not that I would know the numbers, but knowing that empaths make really phenomenal, strong coaches. I was talking to my trainer the other day, and he was saying like so many people think that the coaching industry is completely saturated, and he said when you drill down into the numbers, there's one coach per 600,000. So let me just make it clear numbers, but like there's one coach per 500,000 lot of people. And so as coaches, we tend to surround ourselves with other coaches who speak this language, and we go to network groups with coaches, and we flood our Instagram with lots of coaches' content, and we think like, gosh, everybody must be a coach. But in fact, it's only a small slice of us who are crazy enough to want to help other people solve their problems. It's a beautiful gift, and yet on some level, it's sort of like it comes with its own set of challenges. So I'm pretty sure that if you're an empath and you're looking around the world and you're like, well, everyone must be an empath, I would actually want you to question who are you surrounding yourself with
mm,
that makes it look like there's a whole bunch of empaths on this planet. So yeah, I
mm.
don't have the number for that question that you asked, Jess, but it's kind of yeah, it's thought provoking how many of us are here.
It's a good point that you bring up, and I actually listened to that podcast episode you did with your trainer, so I knew what you were going to say actually. But yeah, if you haven't listened to that podcast episode, Claire interviews her trainer Rick, and it is phenomenal. Actually, every podcast episode, like all of the beautiful human beings that you've interviewed so far are amazing. Like I am just so drawn into your podcast episodes. So everyone should go listen to them. But yeah, I did hear.
Check out Rick because he's been in the industry for 20 years, so he's got a masterful insight into how NLP and the coaching industry has been transforming within itself. So yeah, that was a fun conversation. It's off topic, off the empath side of things, but I'm friends with Rick's wife, and I had said I was trying to work out the questions to ask Rick, and they were kind of dry. And then I spoke to his wife, and she's like, "No, you can ask him the spiritual questions. He is ready." And I was like, well, let's talk about NLP and spirituality.
Yeah.
And he was so generous. He went there with all of the numbers and the energy and his spiritual perception of how NLP can transform the planet. So yeah, thank you, Jess. It was one.
Yeah.
I can feel my energy just go to the.
It was phenomenal. And I guess because, and Rick just has a sense of humor of his own, and it is great. I really, really love it. And it's because I'm doing the NLP training with you in February. I'm so excited for.
Yay! I
It
can't
can't come
wait
around
because
fast enough.
I know we've
Yeah.
got a group of empaths in that group who are so switched on, high vibe, like, whoo, I can't
It's going
wait.
to be so good. The energy is going to be so good. And I've been listening to the pre-training, and it's Rick, right? With the pre-training.
Yeah,
Oh, I love it.
yeah,
It's
with his radio
so,
voice.
yeah, he's got some different voices in there. He gets an Elvis Presley voice in there. It's good. It's really good. But yeah, you're right. We went off topic and we just diversed.
But
Um,
then, do you know? I think that's deliberate because if you are an empath, and this isn't me selling my stuff because I don't care if you see me, Rick, or any other NLP trainers. If you are an empath and you're like, what are the tools? Yes, some of the spiritual development side of things will help you, and I'm sure we'll go into that a bit later about bubbles of light protection and blah blah blah, cutting cords. But NLP is actually one of the most transformational modalities for an empath to be able to recognize what energy is not yours, to enhance your intuition, to recognize the beliefs that you're holding about yourself that were kind of implanted as a child when you were made to think you were second. So for anybody out there, like, how can I step into my empath empowerment? Check out NLP. It turned my life around. But so much so I
mm,
became a trainer in it because it was just like, can't get enough. So yeah,
mm.
anyway.
Yeah, it's actually so funny because the question that I was going to ask next was kind of around it. So, what I'm kind of getting from this all is that empaths are sensitive to energy. Like you were saying before, even when you're younger, you can sort of read the room, you can sort of adapt yourself to make everyone feel comfortable, and you're the peacekeeper and things like that. So, for the empath, what can they do to better cope in such a noisy world?
Yeah. Do you know the high level answer is learn about boundaries and learn about bubbles of light and cut cords, and we can definitely go into that. But I want to demonstrate with you, Jess, and put you on the spot when you, as an example of like how NLP will help with this side of things, or the kind of healing work that really does need to be done, whether it's RTT, kinesiology, but when you think about just times where you were over people pleasing and maybe a little bit triggered, giving so much and yet not getting so much in return, are you able, I don't need you to tell me where it is, but are you able to sort of pull up a memory like that?
I think there's definitely times from my childhood, yeah. Or
Yeah.
definitely all of my life, actually, yeah.
And if you checked in like with just one particular memory, like where in the body are you still holding on to that, like, what I would call that white knuckle frustration of like, why didn't I get seen or something like that? Can you get a sense of where you're still holding onto that in the body?
Mm, like around my like diaphragm,
Yeah. What color is it, Jess?
green.
And I want to just get a bit playful. If we imagine that we pull out that green energy and hold it out in front of you, did the color change or stay the same?
It like went to like yellow.
It went to yellow. Does it take on a shape or a symbol?
It's a shape, and it's kind of like a fireball where in the middle of it it's purple. It's like a dark purple goes to light purple, and then it sort of goes into like a little glowing fireball-y type thing that's yellow.
Yes, you were tuned in, right? You were you went there. That's awesome.
Whoa, I did that.
Now, if we actually ask that and it like getting a bit playful, because this is the way this is going to help you move through this. If we asked it, what's its purpose for being in Jess? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
I'm so blank. I've got zero things coming to me. um,
Checking in with that yellow energy, the ball of fire, it goes purple. What's its purpose for being in Jess?
I'm blank.
You've gone blank. It's probably starting to
Mm.
transform. And 9 times out of 10, let me check in then. First thing that comes to mind, Jess, is this energy yours or somebody else's?
Or somebody else's.
Bingo. And now tell me, what have you learnt from holding on to other people's energy?
That it stays inside me and it just festers there and it's not even mine. And it's like it takes up space that I could have myself.
Yeah, I'm curious. Holding on to other people's energy, how has this kept you safe?
I guess in a way it's like kept me connected. I don't know if I'm on the right
Yeah,
way here, on the right path
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And so if we checked in with this energy and said, well, once Jess is connected to beautiful people, does she actually have to hold on to this ball of purpley, yellowy, like does she need to hold on to this anymore? Does it serve her?
It's wow, it kind of doesn't, but I really get that sense of like I've held it to keep that connection, which is super
Yeah.
interesting because I feel like that's
And
what I needed to keep us connected.
yeah, yeah, it's almost like that trauma bonding stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
to fast forward a whole session here, when you think about the connection that you have with Nate, when you think about even the connection with me, does that connection feel different to that yellowy purple kind of energy?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't feel so like mm, it doesn't feel it feels fiery in a different way. It feels fire where it like lights my soul on fire, but this feels like a fire where it's kind of burning me.
yeah. Yeah, and so what I would do in a lot more detail in a session, but I would be like saying to that energy, thank you for teaching me everything that I needed to about negative connection. That's part of the wounding, and basically handing that to the universe, handing that to my guides, and clear and transmute in all times, dimensions, frequencies, and sort of knowing that it just by choice turns to dust. That you don't have to hold on to that, and now it creates a lot more beautiful space in your body for that soul to soul connections to come in that are more in alignment with where you're wanting to go with your business and your relationships. And so that's the type of work that will propel an empath um, outside of all of that really, really quickly. So, how was that for you, Jess? Putting you on the
Oh my
spot.
gosh. Wow. It is just it's amazing. Like I it's so funny because lots have been coming up for me around connections lately. So it's really interesting. I just like being coached right here, right now. And I thank you. Thank you for that.
No, but you're being a teacher for everybody in this
Yeah.
now moment because there are a lot of misconceptions when people are like boundaries and you're like yes, you need to have boundaries, but first you need to raise your standards, like get out of the heaviness of their energy. You need to be able to work out why you stayed in the heaviness, like, why didn't you move out of it sooner? Raise your standard. And now it's not that you need boundaries, but and it's not a hierarchy thing, but you're up here, the heavy energy's down there, you're rising above it. There's no boundaries, you're flying. And so that's where I kind of go against a bit of the coaching model when it's like boundaries and you say no, and it's like actually that's part of the toolkit, but then do the work. Then do the work to raise your standards so you stop attracting it. So these people don't keep pushing your buttons. Do the work to raise your standards so beautiful people can find you because you're not down in the heaviness. I'm getting all passionate, but that does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, 100%. I fully agree with you. Like I fully agree that that's what there can be the things that are so there's certain things that'll get you results and depending on like long-term results and short-term results. And I did this is definitely going into coaching mode too, but it's definitely you need to ask yourself the questions of like why is it there and what is this teaching me, like what is it why has this been inside me for so long, and then like so, like you say, like let it go or raise the standards or let it process through you and
Yeah,
then go and do the things, and that'll be long-term results because then it's not still festering within you somewhere within your body and it's not still lingering around you. So
yeah,
yeah, like you say, we can go do the boundaries and we can do all that, but yeah, go sort of within first and answer all the questions that need to be answered.
yeah. Yeah, because
Yeah.
like that's where the empath naturally people pleaser. So for us to put up a boundary, the toxic people will push back, and so we get stuck in this. And I'm like, let's not get stuck in the push pull. Let's just
Yep.
and they can off you go, bye, bye.
Let's rise above, let's start flying.
Yeah, and I mean that's part of the empath's journey is to I call it the sacred neutral, but to be in that observing position. And it's like that's it. It's an interesting point of view that you're so power hungry or that you're in fear. It's an interesting point of view, but the responsibility goes back to you to do the work. I've done the work. It's now your time to do the work, and not have this impulse to go and fix because it's actually none of my business for me to take on board somebody else's energy and to hold it to make their life easier means that at no point in time do they actually get the spiritual growth to go and do the work and explore who they are and to do what you've just done, Jess, and go, oh, okay, that's interesting that I was fearful about connections you weren't fearful about connections, but it was the obligations that were there. So it is none of my business to hold on to that. I've learned what I needed to, and now, yeah, whether you hand it back to them or just get the energy to disperse. But yeah,
That's a really good point that you bring up. And that's so that, yeah, because empaths obviously, well, if they don't know how to let go and how, like we've just sort of done, or how to raise your standards or what it might be, then they, what am I trying to get at here? Like if, so me as a coach with my coaching clients, right? Like you say, I have no business staying in their energy. This is for like more of the empowered side. So like I have no business staying in their energy. I'll do my sessions, and then afterwards I will clear because it's
yeah,
their energy for them. They're the ones really doing the work
yeah,
themselves. It's for them. I can't keep holding on to that, or especially say you had so many clients or just anyone in your life,
yeah,
imagine being an empath and really holding on to that and not being able to like you let go of all of that or give it to them.
yeah.
So it's a good point that you bring up because it is really really important. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where like you and I busy coaches, we do need the sort of quick tools to clear our energy and we would call it like, zipping up. It's like, okay, I'm blending with you and now I return and zip up or put a bubble of light over me. Maybe I ask my team to just put a cylinder of light between them and Mother Earth so that I'm getting the support from my spirituality and Mother Earth. I may cut cords with people. So there's different, because intention is so powerful. And so to intend that and say like, okay, I now release you, and notice like bubbles like lemonade leaving my body. It's like, this isn't mine, please leave. I'm a sovereign being, like that has to happen. And so yeah, so again, the team are just talking now and they're saying like, yes, but some of these clients that you attract will come in to even be a teacher for you to know when you're
Mm.
coming off your own path. Remembering to do the bubbles and things. The interesting thing here, Jess, with cutting cords, it's interesting that people say, okay, well, just cut cords with somebody. Like if you've had a fight with your neighbor, just cut the cord. The energy, yes, that will work short term. The long term, if you want, is to actually do similar work to what we've just done, to go back to better understand why the connection was created in the first place. Is there any fear in actually letting go of that connection? Like, why haven't you done it sooner? And and so people are so quick to say, oh, we'll just cut cords. And it's like, actually, there is some detailed work to do to release the soul fragments, the wayward thoughts, the cords, everything that is attached to that. So I'm not trying to make this stuff complicated, but there are definitely tools that will create permanent changes instead of just sort of band-aid solutions.
Yep, cool. And also, like if you are an empath here and you're trying to, see what ways work best for you or what you want to sort of experiment with, there's no harm as well in asking for help from a healer. So there is no harm in doing that and trying that out as well, definitely. So that's something that like we don't need to get super overwhelmed. There's always help out there that we can figure it out, and then we're well on our way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you make a really good point when it comes to the empath and putting I'm the worst at this, Jess. Where we know we so much put our stuff to the side and then make it about the other person, and let's talk about you and let's make sure that you're okay. And I'm so skilled at putting that aside that when it actually does come to working with a healer, I need someone really strong who's going to like, Claire, we're focusing on you. Even after the years and years of work that I've done, I still want to that urging me to help somebody else. I have a hard time saying, oh, I'm having it. I'm being triggered of I need help. So you're 100% right with the empaths putting themselves forward like that. So
Mm,
yeah. Are you the same
mm.
like that, Jess?
Yeah, I think I'm getting better at it.
It's a life journey.
Yeah, it's a life journey, and I think I am getting better at it. I used to be very bad at it. I don't like using such negative words, but it's just true. Like I'm getting a lot better at it, and yeah, it's working well. So that's why it is good advice to just ask for help if you need to, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just yeah, and if you're an empath, be kind and accept that kindness from somebody else. That's part of their purpose to help you. So it's a whole soul to soul thing, that exchange, give and receive. And on that note, I did want to point out, thinking about this podcast coming up, that it was surprising for me to learn, but it makes sense that empaths are actually really, really have a hard time at the beginning of their empath journey to receive money. Now, the empath is such a giver and will put themselves second. They'll keep their prices low to make sure you're okay. They'll do things for free to make sure you're okay. The empath, the empath pattern, as we could call it, has a is makes it incredibly difficult for an empath to receive their abundance. And again, if anybody sort of in that energy, I would say go and do the work, because manifesting money is a lot of fun, super easy. It's just got to get that empath side of you out of the way, out of the
Mm.
way. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so yeah, I love it. A lot
I
of
know, I
thinking
put you on
going
the
on in my
spot.
brain right now. No. Um,
Yeah.
so we spoke a little bit about a little bit before about having soul contracts and putting your hand up and saying yes, I'm going to go explore the divorce and I'm going to go explore all like the harder challenges
Yeah.
that come to life, so that I can learn about it, so that I can mm,
Evolve.
teach, or yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. um but if we were to get a little, if okay, we've talked about past life regression before. If we were to do like a past life regression, could we understand a little bit more about why we are an empath? Because I'm obsessed with past life regression and I just feel like we could.
I love it. Yeah, that's where the fun stuff comes in. For me, I find that a big part of the empath work, in the sense of going from that wounded empath to the empowered empath, a big part of that work is to actually go on a soul's journey before you even came to Earth. So it's a bit of a quantum hypnotherapy side of things, to be able to go and explore who you were, where you were, what your role was on a world that isn't Earth. So when Earth put the call out to say, I'm here, come play, there's a deeper story to that. There's Earth Earth really did put a call out to say, I do need a bit of help. And the healers did come in from all sorts of different multidimensional worlds. Some worlds that are all about technology, some worlds that are all about the angelic realm, some worlds that are all about healing, and everything in between, teaching. And so a lot of the time when you discover that, yes, I'm an empath, I was minding my own business, I was on this beautiful planet doing whatever I was doing, and then and then I came to Earth to bring in that healing, to help. When you discover what your talents were in that world, why, one of the questions I ask is like, when they told you it was time to come to Earth, were you excited about it, or was there a level of resistance? And so, like, and what did you know about Earth to be able to be excited, or what did you know about Earth to know that there should be a level of resistance? When you start to put all of these pieces of the puzzle together, you can better understand and take control of why you chose the body you chose, what's its higher purpose, what am I not seeing that because I've been so much in my wounded energy, and it gives you that clarity to go, right, I can make different choices now. So I hope I'm answering your question there. But when it comes to that soul contract and that soul journey, being an empath here, it's got a lot more to do with where you've been and where you're going, more than being stuck in that heavy energy. So yeah,
Mm.
I'm like, does that resonate with you, Jess, with the sessions that we've done where taking you to other worlds and explored who you were?
Yeah, it's actually, we talked about, I think we did talk about this on the past life regression episode as well, and we talked about the different worlds, and I said, or asked that question for the listeners to like think about, what you're good at and what you are, and like in that way, and then you'll realize what world you sort of come from. But it has, for me, yeah, in my I'm thinking about my past life regressions and like the worlds that I've come from. It's like it's hard to put words to it, but it makes sense. It makes sense for me. And it does help me a little bit to see like why I've volunteered to like become an empath, to and then like further on teach about it, like
Yeah,
what especially for like in your childhood and things, like what sort of lessons I came in here and volunteered, because I didn't do the divorce thing. I mean,
yeah,
I've never been married and I didn't put my hand up for all of that, but I have put my hand up for other challenges. So then I can come back and I can really learn that, and yeah, I guess teach on that or help others on that or guide through that. Yeah, it it's more of like an acceptance, because if you're not in this empowered feeling around being an empath yet, it will start to help people feel more of an acceptance, or feel, what is the word that I'm trying to get, feel content in being an empath, and happy
Yeah,
to be an empath. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
know a lot of people get frustrated and they're like, why can I not just let go of the energy? And why can I just like, why do I have to be someone who takes on a lot of energy? I don't want to be that. It's like, oh, but there's a reason here. Um,
yeah,
so hopefully for the listeners at home, that's sort of helping them to sort of realize, especially if they are a person who gets a little frustrated at, having to take on so much energy and making it feel really heavy within them. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and well, you make a good point. Like, not everybody does the divorce, not everybody does the toxic relationships, but the empaths typically will have some level of a chaotic childhood. Maybe, maybe like your parents were gamblers, maybe a parent died when you were young, maybe you were homeless, maybe you were something that doesn't need to be divorce. For me, it was. And that's why it's on the tip of my tongue. But you're right, like to have that understanding, like there was a greater purpose to some of those challenges to build you up. And it's not to say that we always have to go through challenges to learn. In fact, Mother Earth wants us to learn through those really exciting times, those high vibrational times. They're just as important. And so it's not to get caught in that trap of like, oh, okay, well then, I'm going to ask for every single hard, difficult thing I can go through. So I'm evolving soul. You have every single right to learn these lessons through love and compassion and joy. So again, it is that polarity side of things. I did facilitate a group past life regression last night, and it sort of, as you're saying there, talk about the contentment. Everybody everybody had in that group, everybody had an experience or an aha moment to like, right, I am not alone. I am connected to my guides. There is a purpose for why I'm doing what I'm doing, or a purpose for why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. And so these are very smart, articulate people, and some of the solutions were in the past lives more than it was here in the now. And so if you are an empath and you're holding on to survivor's guilt, and it's like, but where would that come from? Or you're an empath and it's like, well, I'm putting me second. Why am I not seen? Why am I not heard? A lot of the times the answer actually is past lives, or multidimensional before you even came to Earth. So that's one of what you're talking about there, Jess, with that level of contentment. It's like, I see where that came from. Now I've got the option to choose a different thought, choose a different path. Yeah, it's pretty
Mm.
fun.
All the more reason to go and explore your past lives. Oh, I
Yeah,
feel like I need to
go
come back
talk
to
to a
that.
psychologist about this and see how far you go. Like, they're like, I'm an empath and I'm putting myself second, and I'm making fun, but what I'm honestly trying to say here, Jess, is that an empath's journey, a lot of their experience is at an unconscious level of why they take on the energy. It's an unconscious level about their intuition. It's at an unconscious level why they continue to attract people who drain and overload them. And it's only with modalities that are at an unconscious level, who can get right into the deep core of who you are, that those changes can occur. A lot of
Yeah.
the psychological models, the trauma counselors, as beautiful as they work at a logical level. And so A plus, 1 plus 2 equals 3, put your boundaries in, say no, but that only gets you so far. And that's why I talk about hypnotherapy, NLP, or kinesiology so much, is like, get to the cause of where it is. So you're not at that conscious level, you're actually healing it, as you were saying, Jess, to be
Mm.
to be a permanent change. So yeah, you can hear me. I could talk about this stuff forever.
We
So
love it. Oh, we really do love it.
hopefully it's
Cool.
helpful, and sort of reflecting it back to you, Jess, like you were saying earlier, about learning some more things about yourself or your empath journey, like, is it making sense for you in the sense of like um, putting some of the pieces of the puzzle together?
Yeah, I think so. I am thinking about some things, like especially before when you said about memories, I'm thinking about like the memories of when certain things have happened, and now I'm starting to have some clarity in why I did that, or why I acted that way, or why I made that decision. And also just within the memory of what actually was going on with other people around me. It's it's really cool to think back to now, because I didn't actually start exploring my spiritual side or have a spiritual awakening until I really met you. And it's been such a fun journey, but the more we talk and the more I get to know about me and have some more clarity, I'm seeing that there was a spiritual side to me all along, and
Yeah,
I'm seeing it really come out. And just, yeah, the more we explore, especially exploring in these episodes for people, I hope the more you explore, you're starting to understand. Like I'm definitely seeing a lot of things and understanding a lot of reasons why, like I say,
yeah,
I did that and I did this, especially within my family.
yeah. Yeah. And do you know there's actually science that backs up the empath side of things? And I don't proclaim to be an expert in the science behind it, but the motor neurons that are natural when it comes to mother and baby, and you feed a little one and you open your mouth and then they open their mouth, like we're all connected energetically within the motor neurons, the electromagnetic field. And so what you're saying there, Jess, with the family dynamics, your motor neurons, your natural energy was trained to follow their lead. And it's really only when it comes to that spiritual awakening where you start to actually question, was their lead in the highest and best interest for where I'm now going. And as you're articulating, like you had the most phenomenal surviving skill within you to get through that chapter. And then it's like, well, I'm now an independent woman. What else can I achieve? And so that's where it is changing the science, changing the neural pathways, changing your behaviors, your thoughts, your actions, all of that, to get a different result. So yeah.
I was actually going to ask about that because, I mean, personally, well, not so much anymore. I don't really ask about the science around things, but when I first started, I felt like I needed to know the science behind it. I would always ask you, what's the science behind this? What's the science behind that? For the listeners, it's a really good thing to know, like the science behind it, because they might be in that same phase of,
Oh yeah, we're
their
talking
spiritual
woo-woo kind of
awakening.
stuff. We're like, we are
Yeah.
not talking
No,
woo-woo here.
yeah, no, no, none of that. There's science to back it up. So when we're talking about families, and I'm just wondering, what can all family members be empaths, or is it usually just sort of one sort of chosen for a family? How does that work?
Yeah, typically, you hear people talk about the black sheep in the family or whatever that saying, the odd one in the family, whatever the saying is, there tends to be like if your soul wants to go do the hard yards with their empath journey, then like they will be the odd one in that family. And yeah, and it's like being amongst spiritually asleep people, and you're they're in a black and white world and you're seeing color, and it's like and you get frustrated that you can't express that and share that with people, and they don't understand you, and now you become the weird one, and now you become the one who's creating all of the drama, and now you're the one who's quick to react, and it's sort of like and so in those family dynamics, it really does, they are really really strong teachers in that aspect of where you can take your spiritual gifts. I have seen families where there's multiple empaths, but maybe they do their empath side of things differently. And thinking about my four daughters, they'd be there's definitely one who's more feeling based empath, and then there's definitely so I've got twins, and one of them's definitely feeling based empath, and that she feels the world so intensely. And yet I've got another, her twin is so intuitively psychic with their empath skills that some stuff that comes out of that child's mouth, and you're like, where did that come from? And
Mm.
and their way of coping with their empath skills is to say it like it is. And so of course that triggers the twin to say, but I'm feeling that really intensely. Like, can you soften it? And you're like, no. So
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
wondering if this is bringing up lots like it's bringing up lots for me, for the listeners like it is for me. This is bringing
Oh,
up,
what's going on
yeah.
for you? Hopefully I'm being gentle with this.
No, no, really, really gentle. I don't think she'll mind. But I'm actually thinking about the difference between me and my sister.
Mm.
And what there is because okay, I don't think my sister is in any way spiritually asleep, but I think
No, she's spiritually awake. She's still
she's
navigating.
she's yeah, that's the word, navigating. And it's so, and me too. I don't know if this is correct exactly, but the more I think about it, the more I'll get it. But I feel like I was kind of that feeling based, and she is that intuitive based. And it's really cool to think about. So Shan, if you're listening, we've done the work. We've
We
already
love
done the
you,
work for
Shannon.
you.
Yeah,
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 okay, cool.
she's tuned in so phenomenally. That that wherever Shannon goes, the environment needs to be able to support those intuitive gifts, and needs to challenge those intuitive gifts, because the minute that somebody like Shannon gets a little bit bored or stuck, that's where that wounded empath side of things really hits hard. So it's like it's not like an empath needs to go buy a house in the forest, never connect with people, like just cocoon me from this world. The empath actually does crave the challenge, and that development to be able to expand. So similar to you there, Jess, when it's like, yeah, I'm gonna work on a super yacht, I'm gonna travel the world. Like you've been out there in the world. You haven't cocooned yourself up because the world's a scary place. You've like gone out there and really challenged how you can better enhance these empath gifts. And like with the guests that come onto the super yacht and things, this is where your empath gifts are like, wow, they work perfectly, because you can tune into the guest's need, without them saying too many words. At the end of the day, that could be a little bit overwhelming for you, but learning how to ground yourself, learning how to dive into that ocean of yours, learning how to separate yourself, learning when to draw the line and say, okay, I've had enough, I need a break. That all goes hand in hand, right?
Yeah, yeah, you're right, you're right. Yeah, it really helps. And I'm also thinking about another example was the other day, me and Shan, we were both talking about how she feels sometimes she is the black sheep in maybe her job because she reads the room and she will always not change herself in the way of like it's not a version of her, but change herself in respect
Yeah,
for whoever she's around. Maybe she's around elder people, maybe
yeah,
she's around Maori people, maybe she's around Islander people, kids. She can
yeah,
be, if they're like teenagers, she can be all cheeky and playful with the kids. But if they're old elderly and they're a bit more proper, she can definitely have that. She has a lot of different versions of her, and she was thinking that that could potentially be people pleasing and maybe more of a wound. But I said that's actually such a superpower that you can read the room and you're not changing as a people pleaser, but you're actually changing because it's really respectful and it's not in a very heavy way. Like
yeah.
you're amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and the difference is though Shannon's got the discernment. Talking about you, Shannon, we love you, but you're being a teacher here for everybody listening, but Shannon has the discernment to know that that she won't drop her energy to anything less than her value or less than her standard. So yes, and I would be the same, you would be the same. Any elders or grandparents, there's a lot of respect there versus hanging out with 12-year-olds and fart jokes. Like we will pivot, bringing your shows anyway, bringing the vocab down to a low level. But you're right, it is about the richness in being a human is having these connections and having these relationships. And if the relationship is that mutual ping pong game of tennis, then absolutely, bring the best out in yourselves, respectful of the elders, play the kiddie kind of jokes with the little ones. But as long as you're true to you, that's the number one message there. If you're finding yourself in those toxic relations where people just take, 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 listen to that.
Mm.
And it's time to do a bit of coaching, healing, because that means you're out of alignment. So, yeah.
Mm. Awesome. This is great. I feel like the listeners are getting so much from this. So we're talking a little bit about being an empath and seeing like the superpowery sides of it. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm wondering, if what happens to a person when they embrace their, empath abilities? Like, can they step into a complete superpower?
Yeah. I mean, I, that is what NLP did for me. It gave me
Yeah.
permission to step into my empath and claim who I am and say, actually, I do want to talk. Could you imagine at my family dinner table talking past lives and tarot, please? Um, and NLP gave me the tools to say, actually, because when I learned tarot, I might have said this in the last one, but I remember telling a family member, they're like, oh, you can never learn tarot. What would people think of me? And I'm like, actually, I'm going to give it a go because that's what resonates for who I am. And I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of other weird people, aka the normal people, who want to talk tarot with me and past lives and
I'm putting my
exploring
hand
all
up.
of that. I don't want to talk numbers. I don't want to talk corporate. I don't want to talk engineering. I want to play.
Mm, yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not sure if I've answered your question there, but it's giving yourself permission to step into the weird and wonderful. Yeah, it just feels a lot more free and liberating, and to be able to surround yourselves with people who do see that normalcy in our in our empath. Just this morning, going for our morning coffee with my husband, and he's like, so I was sitting in the spa and I was having a chat to the angels, and they were talking about this. And like, oh yeah, what did the angel, and it was, right? Like,
Oh,
they're the
yeah.
conversations that are worth having. I don't want to talk
Yeah.
about what's on the news.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so, I actually, when you were saying like, when you use the word weird, I was like, what are you talking about? And then I was like, I actually forgot that some people do find that weird. It's so normal.
Yeah, like let's talk crystals, and as crazy as I sound, I don't care. They make me feel good, just like my indoor plants make me feel good. So
Yeah. Yeah. So like, yeah, that superpower would be like stepping into, or depending on what your superpower is, but like either way, you're going to be stepping into feelings of lightness and free and liberating and empowered. And I mean, why wouldn't we want to be living a life with those feelings, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I think I've heard another thought leader say, oh, maybe this past life regression, the crystals, the spirituality, maybe that's a bit delusional to, put any power onto that. And then that thought leader said, but how delusional is it to hold on to anxiety and delusional to hold on to fear and hold on? So I don't really care what works to get you out of that fear and that anxiety, whether it is these spiritual gifts that get you to see a different perspective of life, whatever gets you to feeling that light vibration, whatever gets you being able to express that truth of who you are, that's the path, that's the truth to go on, right? So any sort of, I mean, if they're still listening after an hour of us talking, you're not going to question how delusional we are. But for anybody else, if you've got people there who are saying you're delusional, oh, crystals and whatever else, then actually have a look at their lives and how delusional. they're living,
100%.
because you're probably taking on a bit of their energy and seeing the lens through their world. And as I've said to you time and time again, Jess, I don't know how people live without their spirit guides. I don't know how you do this without that support, because my guides have been there since day one. So to learn that people don't have access to their spiritual gifts, to learn that people don't have their guides with them, I'm like, what a what a dull idea that is.
Oh, so if you are feeling like, well, will you bring up, yeah, it's great. It's true. It's so true. I've never thought about it like that. Like, how delusional are you? Like living and staying in these feelings of anxiety and fear and all of this. So, yeah, you're right, because people could be saying, oh, the people who think this is all normal and being with your spirits and your spirit guides is you're delusional. You're right.
Yeah.
You could argue the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the interesting thing with that was I had the client and she suggested my website to an academic person and they're like, oh no, 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 no. Claire's too wishy-washy, I don't want that. And then they pursued a more of a human coach and didn't get very far. And then eventually we had a session and it was like, well, they had a session with some of the tools that I use, and it was like, wow, and things shifted really quickly. So I really don't care if people go to my website and think it's a bit wishy-washy. I hope that they see that there's beauty and integrity in that. But as long as they do what's right for them to get them stepping into that light and feeling good, that yeah, I know I've said it a few times, but that's what it's all about, right, Jess?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, I can't stop thinking about um when you brought up that people might think this is weird, and I'm just like, what are you talking about? This is not weird. So if you're at home listening, or you're wherever you are listening, and you considered that black sheep, or you like to have these conversations and you just don't feel heard or seen, come send either myself or Claire a DM. We are more than happy to have these conversations with you. In fact,
Yeah.
we encourage it.
Love these dynamic conversations, and yeah, that's where the aha moments and and I'm not saying that my way is the only way, but when you have these dynamic conversations and you learn different points of view, it just gets you out of that stuck energy, so it's fun.
Yeah, for
Mm.
sure. Oh, Claire, this has been amazing. Is there anything else that you think we haven't covered that the listeners need to know?
Checking in with the team, checking in with the guides. No, the when it comes to the empath journey, you have been so thorough. We've covered the multidimensional, the science, and everything in between, the tools to be able to overcome and get through to the other side. It's a fun journey, and as long as you can find that support to to help you on that journey, then yeah, absolutely. Like that's again, we're just coming back to that same pattern and the same thread with the team is like there's absolutely more to life. Get out there and explore and play and yeah, and a big thank you, Jess, for asking all of these dynamic questions. And I put you on the spot with the coaching thing, the
That
coaching
was great.
process. And
No,
yeah,
it's been
appreciate everything you do there, Jess, and getting these conversations out there. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Claire. You are the expert. And, like I say, everyone loves hearing you chatting and loves hearing your explanations. I got another message today, and the feedback that they gave me was Claire and her explanations and everything she talks about is chef's kiss. That's what they said. They were just like, it is like bliss to listen to. So there's no doubt that these episodes are really getting out there in the best way possible. And I know that this has been a dream of yours to talk about some of these things and to get this out there to more people. Hopefully, other people are starting to have conversations like this or even have thoughts about this. And yeah, if you're listening to this episode and you're starting to think about, oh, like, am I an empath? Am I not an empath? Or what sort of signs are coming up that are that are
Yeah.
showing that I am an empath, or just anything about it, I would love to I would love for you to DM me and we can talk about it.
DM me. I know you say
And
like you're
Claire,
getting all the
don't forget
feedback, and
about
I'm like, I
Claire.
don't get the feedback.
Oh, I know. No, DM Claire as well, and we can all have
There's
this
a
chat about it. It's beautiful.
there's a page on my website that goes into detail about an empath. I have every intention to create that empath mini course. Next year, I'm planning on creating the past life regression course. I've done the tarot course that's on Udemy. Um, and then there's a manifesting course that is currently being, in in the wheels, in the production at the moment. So I'm not in any way having any salesy stuff there. I'm just saying that like you inspire me, Jess, to put this content out in the world, and for any listeners there, it's just fun to share this with you. So, yeah, thank you, Jess.
Oh, honestly, it's been ever since, exploring this spiritual awakening. Life has just been so clear and understanding for me. And the more that I can, be a part of getting that out there for others to potentially explore themselves in the same way, it really helps, and it really fulfills my purpose. But then also having the expert to have the chats too, so that there are the actual facts and things, because I'm still navigating my way through the stage of my spiritual awakening. It's really amazing. And yes, you may say that you're not selling, and well, like, I can vouch that any course, the tarot course that is on Udemy now, it's amazing. Like, I've been through it, or I've seen bits of it,
100
and
videos there.
if you are interested in that, you should definitely get onto that. Like, and all the other things that are coming, and all the other fun things that are coming, because it is so fun. It is so lighthearted. We're starting this NLP course. I already have such great energy and vibes coming from that, and I feel it, and I'm just so excited for it. And like anything that's talking about in the way of spirituality is fun. So yeah, definitely get on it. There is no that don't be shy, don't hesitate,
Yeah.
just do it. It's definitely a fun world to be a part of. Yeah.
Thank you, Jess. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And yeah, thank you to the listeners. If you're still listening after all of this time, I really appreciate it.
And as always, I will add Claire's links in the show notes, and especially her website, because like we say every time, there's a lot of great resources on there. It's amazing. Go explore for yourself. And we can't wait to chat to you all next time.
Thank you. Thank you, Jess. Bye, everybody.